back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
We are really excited about the source material we're digging into today.
Yeah, me too. We're pulling from Karl Pillemer's book, 30 Lessons for Living.
Specifically Chapter 2, which is called Great Together.
That's the one. And our mission really is to unpack the wisdom on building happy, long-lasting relationships.
And it's straight from the source, hundreds of older Americans who've actually lived it for decades.
Exactly. It's like getting a shortcut, you know? Learning what really counts over the long haul from people who've seen it all.
And the chapter starts by highlighting this paradox about marriage today.
It really does. There's this tension, right?
Yeah, between the statistics and how people seem to feel about it.
Absolutely. So on one side, you see the numbers. Marriage rates are down. People marry later.
Divorce rates are still pretty high, hovering around half in the U.S.
Right. And more kids born outside marriage, lots of couples living together first. It makes you ask, like the book does, is marriage still necessary?
But then, the flip side is that marriage is still this huge ideal. You see it everywhere in pop culture.
And the surveys back that up. Something like 90% of high school kids expect to get married.
And most Americans, about 90%, do get married eventually.
And crucially, the research generally agrees. Marriage seems to be good for us.
In what way?
Well, family scholars find married folks, especially in Western countries, tend to be happier, healthier.
Better off financially and psychologically too, right?
Yeah, higher incomes often, more emotional support. It seems to provide real benefits.
And that remarriage rate is pretty telling, isn't it? Like 3/4 of people who divorce get married again, often pretty quickly.
It really is the triumph of hope over experience, as they say.
Which brings us right back to that puzzle.
Exactly. Most people want it. It seems to be beneficial, but almost half end in divorce. And the weird thing is, even the experts don't have solid answers on why some make it 60 years and others don't.
And that's where these elders come in. Their perspective is just unique.
Totally. They're not just starting out. They've seen the whole movie. You know, decades of marriage.
Their dating lives might look different from today. No internet dating back then. But the core feelings, the excitement, the nerves, that's universal.
Definitely. And we should probably clarify while they mostly talk about marriage because that was their experience.
The lessons apply much more broadly.
For sure.
Yeah.
To any committed long-term partnership, cohabiting couples, same-sex couples, the principles are about deep connection, period.
Okay, so let's get into their advice. Lesson number 1. What was the big takeaway?
Well, it was almost unanimous, which is interesting and maybe a little surprising.
Oh, what was it?
Marry someone a lot like you.
Really? But what about opposites attract? That's like the classic story.
I know, but these elders, hundreds of them, were incredibly consistent on this. They felt opposites might create that initial spark.
But for the long haul, not so much.
Exactly. For navigating decades together, big differences, especially in fundamental areas, just create constant hurdles.
And they weren't talking about surface stuff, I assume, like favorite movies or whatever.
No, not at all. The absolute most critical thing to be similar on, core values.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense.
They saw younger people maybe focusing more on, looks or money or sense of humor initially.
But the elders looked back and said,
shared values are the foundation you need when things get tough. That's what carries you through.
And the stories really illustrate this. Like Emma Sylvester, married 58 years.
Yeah, shared values were crucial, especially about money. She called that a stumbling block for many.
Because they agreed on the big things, education, kids, finances. They just didn't have as much to fight about. Same goals.
And Keith Kuhn, his first marriage didn't work partly because they came from different worlds, different views.
But his second, 24-year marriage.
Built on compatibility, understanding values. He said they never really had a fight, meaning no meanness, no power plays.
Then there was Ben Santarelli, met his wife at work.
Right. He described them as very similar, enjoying the same cultural activities, similar politics. Like 2 peas in a pod, he said.
Even someone like April Stern, who identified as more counterculture, feminist.
She still stressed similarity, said you need that deep friendship underneath.
What were their shared values?
Politics, not being flashy with money, giving back, travel, liking the same people, parenting, even a shared sense of humor. That was huge for her.
So finding someone similar is key. But there's a step before that, isn't there?
Absolutely critical. You have to know yourself first, know your own values.
Jan Fordham, married 33 years, said exactly that. Know oneself to find that kindred spirit. Your values have to align in your closest relationship.
And I loved Gerald Hendricks' approach. This guy was methodical.
How so?
He had 2 long, happy marriages. For both, he made lists, like 7 or 8 things he really valued and wanted in a partner.
Wow, what kind of things?
Being family-oriented, wanting physical affection. He used the word touchy, valuing independence.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And he discussed these lists.
Yep. Early on with potential partners. Asked if they agreed. He just said, "It worked for me. I've been supremely happy."
So the takeaway is, get serious, talk values. Do you believe the same things are important?
Because value differences they saw again and again were often at the root of major problems down the line.
And this actually lines up with research, doesn't it? This idea of homogamy.
It does. Social science finds that similarity, background values, age, religion does correlate with more stable, happier marriages. The elders' experience matches the data.
Which is interesting because we talk so much about valuing diversity today. Their advice feels a bit old-fashioned.
It can seem that way. They weren't saying never marry someone different, especially if the love is strong. But they saw big differences, especially in core values, as making the journey much, much harder. Shared values help you navigate the other differences more smoothly.
Okay, and tied right into finding someone similar was another piece of advice they hammered home.
Oh, yeah. This one was loud and clear.
Don't expect to change your partner after you get married.
Forget it. A fool's errand, they called it. Don't even try.
Allison Hanley's story really hit this. Married young, thought she could change him.
And couldn't. Realized, I can only change myself. Big lesson.
And Tina Oliver, 88, she was blunt, tells young people, unless you're sure, don't, and you're not going to change him. She said it's incredibly rare for people to change significantly after marriage.
So the practical advice here is look honestly at your partner before things get serious. What are you hoping changes?
And then ask, what if it never does? Can you live with that?
Right. Focus that energy on yourself, your reactions. That's the only thing you truly control.
Okay, so similarity is the foundation. What about the connection itself? That brings us to lesson 2.
Yes. Friendship. Friendship is as important as romantic love.
This really struck a chord. So many of them said, I married my best friend.
And the flip side, people whose marriages struggled often said, we were good at the romance part, but we never learned how to just be friends.
We do tend to separate those things in our culture, don't we? Friends are friends, partners are partners.
But the elders described friendship and marriage as bringing this lightness, this ease, just enjoying being together, sharing things, talking easily.
Not like those couples you sometimes see who seem to have run out of things to say.
Exactly. So they advise looking for friend qualities. Can you just relax and hang out? Do you genuinely like spending time with them? Apart from the romance?
Is this the person you'd want on your team, basically?
Precisely. And they warned against getting blinded by that initial romantic rush.
Because that fades, or changes at least.
It inevitably becomes less intense over decades. They've lived it. So they urge you to think ahead. Ask yourself, okay, what comes after that initial thrill?
Will you still like this person waking up next to you in 20, 30 years?
That's the question. Nicole Ambrose saw this with her own parents. No friendship. Her own marriage hit a point where it felt like just existing.
What do they do?
They actually went to marriage encounter, worked on communication, consideration. Her big takeaway, you have to be friends first, and you have to work on it. She thinks love grows best if you have that friendship base.
And Patty Brinaus, who felt she got it right the second time around.
Her advice was super straightforward. Be sure that you're really good friends. That is the most important thing. Romance alone won't cut it for the long haul.
So the message is, marry your friend. Your best friend, ideally.
Yeah, they push you to ask, if the romance wasn't there, would we still choose to hang out? Would we be friends?
Because when the passion cools, what's left? Not just the kids.
You gotta be that friendship. And if you don't have it, their advice is pretty stark. Don't get married. It's that simple.
Marco Esteban, who was 90, put it well.
He did. Romance and love are not the same. Romantic love is an insufficient condition for a successful marriage. Real lasting love develops slowly, he thought.
Okay, so similarity and friendship are crucial. What about the day-to-day stuff? Lesson 3 gets into that, right? The give and take.
Yes, that phrase came up constantly. It seemed obvious to them.
But what do they actually mean by it? Do they mean like 50-50?
That's what the author asked Alvin Baker, married 63 years. And Alvin's response was powerful.
What did he say?
He strongly disagreed with 50-50. He said, no, it's 100% or even 110%.
From both people.
Absolutely, both partners giving 100% all the time. That was the key.
So it's not about splitting chores down the middle or keeping score.
Not at all. It's an attitude of giving freely, focusing on the other person. The problems start, they said, when you start keeping score.
Sue Bennett, married 60 years, said something similar.
Right.
Yeah.
That might be 90-10 sometimes.
Exactly. Depending on who needs what. You just have to keep giving, try to understand, make peace, sometimes give in. You can't be counting every little thing.
So the principle is orient yourself to giving more than you expect back.
And if both people do that, you both win massively. It's real cooperation. Avoid that economic attitude like it's a transaction.
Crystal Gullett's story really showed this. Married later, stepmom to 5 kids.
Yeah, she said neither of them asks, am I getting what I need? It's always, what can I do for him? Or what can I do for her?
And they lived it. She supported him through a tough retirement.
And then his caregiving for her during her cancer, he called it his full-time job. Incredible. She stressed that marriage goes up and down. Sometimes one needs more, sometimes the other.
And the image they often used was being a team.
Yes. Pulling together as of one mind, making life's challenges easier because you're facing them together.
Albert Folsom, the sage farmer.
Right. He learned teamwork on the farm, said a good spouse will make you, not break you. The key is working together, not worrying about winning or losing.
He had that image of the workhorses.
2 horses pulling a heavy load, perfectly in sync, as of one mind. That's how he saw his 59-year marriage. They got through incredibly tough times together. One person can't pull the load alone.
And Annette Watkins had that lovely little daily practice.
Oh, that was beautiful, she told her kids. When you wake up, think, what can I do to make his day or her day just a little happier?
Just that small shift in focus.
Turning towards each other, thinking about giving, even for 5 minutes. Support each other, work as a team. Start the day thinking about contributing.
That seems like a really practical way to live out that 100% giving idea.
It really does. Okay, so teamwork and giving are vital. What enables all that? Lesson 4, talk to each other.
This feels fundamental. Can you actually talk to your spouse about anything? Or are there no-go zones?
The elders were adamant. Your partner has to be someone you can communicate with openly, period.
And a big regret for some was ending up with someone who just couldn't or wouldn't talk.
Yeah, that buyer's remorse came up. Russell Lockwood learned this. Married 37 years, he said you have to talk things out. Don't let stuff boil up inside until it explodes.
I'll put the fire out when it first starts. Good advice.
And he felt you could usually tell early on while dating if communication was going to be possible. If you can't talk, you're headed for unhappiness.
And a key part of communication is handling conflict, right?
Yeah.
They said you need to learn how to fight.
Yes, fights will happen. 2 different people sharing a life. Of course you'll disagree. It's how you fight that matters.
Dora Bernal's perspective was amazing. 67 years married.
And fighting at least 2 a week, even in their 80s. But she just shrugged it off.
Like, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. Oh, well, so what? You fight, you get over it, 10 minutes, then 5 minutes as you get older. She thought younger people panic too much about fights. If you want to stay married, you'll fight. Big deal.
So, accepting conflict is part 1. Part 2 is finding constructive ways to handle it.
Right. And they had some creative tips.
Like Gary Serber's tip.
Yeah.
Get out of the house.
Yeah. Change the scenery. Discuss problems somewhere neutral, not where they usually happen.
And finding ways to blow off steam first.
Definitely. Annette Watkins wrote angry letters she never sent. Lydia McKeon yelled at her farm animals.
Whatever works. Just cool down before you engage.
Ben Sandrelli's point about teasing was interesting, too.
They made a pact to stop.
Yeah, it was getting nasty, digging too deep. Stopping the teasing was a turning point. Cleared the air.
And then there's the listening part. Really listening.
Crucial. Natalie Bazell learned to stop planning her reply and just hear her husband ask, what would you want?
Mark and Brenda Minton had that formal technique.
Yeah, one person gets the floor, talks for 5-10 minutes, the other listens, then repeats back what they heard until the speaker says, yes, that's right. Then switch.
Slows things down, forces understanding.
Exactly. And April Stern had that great tip about letting go.
Asking, which one of us is this more important to?
Right. Just consciously asking that Komen can help the other person release it. It clarifies what really matters.
Okay, so communication is key. That brings us to the 5th and final big lesson. This one feels weightier.
It does. It's about the commitment itself. Don't just commit to your partner, commit to marriage itself.
And the book notes a big cultural shift here. The elders' generation saw marriage as permanent. Divorce had a real stigma. Now, that stigma is mostly gone. Divorce is seen as a morally acceptable option by most.
But the elders really pushed back against that casual view.
They did. Their strong advice to younger couples hitting rough patches was view marriage as an unbreakable, lifelong commitment from the very beginning.
Now, they weren't saying stay no matter what, right? Like abuse or constant infidelity.
No, absolutely not. They weren't advocating staying in truly toxic or dangerous situations.
But they believed most marriages don't end for those extreme reasons.
Right. More often it's unmet needs, feeling like you've fallen out of love, routine conflicts, and those things, they insisted, are solvable.
If you believe you have to solve them, if leaving isn't really seen as an option.
Exactly. Their own lives proved it. Many talked about incredibly hard times, times they wanted out.
But they stayed because they felt they had to.
And because they stayed, they found ways to compromise, to reconnect. And the result was often decades more of deep satisfaction and happiness together.
It's a different mindset, not just we love each other now, but a commitment to the idea of marriage, to the institution itself, honoring the vows, for better or for worse, seeing it as something bigger than your immediate feelings.
Amelia Callender, married 54 years, said, "Look beyond the passion. It's a life commitment. Rough spots are normal."
She admitted feeling this is not worth it sometimes, but knew she had to stick with it for her vows, for her kids as examples. That shared history, good and bad, was precious to her.
And Mark Minton talked about struggle being part of life, including marriage.
Yeah, he said marriage deserves to be worked at. It requires stubborn hopefulness, a stubborn commitment.
Don't give up in the dark valleys.
Because quitting cuts off future possibilities. Struggle is necessary for a full life, he felt. Persistence pays off.
And so many of them had these turning point stories.
Yes, moments where they were right on the edge of leaving, but chose to turn back, work it out, and got decades more happiness as a result.
Sandy Hudgens' story was incredibly moving. Her husband, coming back from WWII, changed.
With battle fatigue, drinking, nightmares, really difficult. Her turning point was giving him an ultimatum. Stop drinking or she'd leave.
And he stopped.
He stopped. She stayed, even though she'd been so close to leaving. And she was so grateful she did. They had 20 more wonderful years together. A bonus, she called it.
And her takeaway summed it all up.
Too many young people now are giving up too early, too soon. In her day, they stuck with it. Divorce wasn't really in our language. They kept trying.
Wow. 5 really powerful lessons grounded in lifetimes of experience.
They really are. Find similarity, especially in values. Build real friendship. Give 100%. Don't keep score. Learn to talk and fight constructively. And commit not just to your partner, but to the marriage itself for the long haul.
It creates a kind of coherent picture, doesn't it? Marriage is hard. There will be ups and downs, but these approaches make it work.
Exactly. And there was one more piece of advice that almost everyone mentioned, often just as a final thought, but it felt so central.
What was that?
Don't go to bed angry.
Ah, the classic. It sounds so simple.
It does, but they meant it deeply. Why? Because stewing on anger in bed, that most intimate space, just feels wrong.
The end of the day kind of sources a resolution.
Or at least putting a pin in it. And honestly, most fights aren't worth carrying overnight. They suggested finding ways to resolve it before sleep.
Like deciding who it matters more to, venting privately, agreeing it's small stuff.
Or just agreeing to talk about it tomorrow calmly, whatever it takes to lower the temperature before you turn out the light.
But there was a deeper layer to it, wasn't there? From Wilma Yeager.
Oh, yes. Her insight was profound. She said, never go to bed without saying, I love you.
Even if you're gritting your teeth.
Even then. Why? Because, she said, you never know what's going to happen during the night.
Wow. That really lands. The uncertainty of life.
Something elders understand deeply. Waking up next to your partner after decades, that's a gift. Every single day is a gift.
So ending the day without anger isn't just about the fight.
It's about acknowledging the bigger picture, the shared values, the friendship, the commitment. That stuff trumps the need for the last word. Because at the end of the day, it could be the end.
Just incredible wisdom, not theoretical, but lived.
Decades of navigating partnership, the good and the bad.
So those 5 lessons, plus that crucial postscript, a roadmap from those who've walked the path. We really hope this deep dive into Great Together gives you, our listener, some valuable things to think about.
Yeah, whether for your own relationships now or how you might approach them in the future, or just appreciating that hard-won wisdom.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
It was great digging into this.
And definitely stay tuned. Our next deep dive goes into Chapter 3 of the book. It's titled, Glad to Get Up in the Morning.
Ooh, that sounds good. Exploring how these elders found purpose, meaning, and joy in daily life as they aged.
Exactly. We're really looking forward to exploring those lessons with you next time.
Absolutely. Join us then for another deep dive.